Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to talk about Unit 8, 8.1, equivalent fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now, let's start the questions. First, here we have 55%. 55% means 55 over 100. So 55 over 100. And when you simplify it, you divide it by the highest common factor, which is 5. So divide by 5 is going to be 11. Divide by 5 is going to be 20. Uh, and 55% is the same as 55 as a decimal, like this, 0.55. Same idea here, 15%. Let's do two or three of them so you understand the idea. So here, 15% is 15 over 100. And then when you simplify, divide by its simplest or divide to its simplest form by dividing by the highest common factor. So divide by 5, divide by 5. When you divide 15 by 5, it's going to be 3. And when you divide 100 by 5, it's going to be 20. So 3 over 20. And then 15% is the same as 0.15 as a decimal. This is how you turn percentages to fractions and simplify it, and then turning percentages into decimals. Now let's move on to the next question. All of them have the same idea, so focus on that idea, okay? Now, let's see. Ah, if we have mixed numbers, let's see, copy and complete this table. Here we have mixed numbers, decimals, and percentages. So this table is for the mixed number fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now, how do you do this? 1.5 as a decimal is going to be what? You can use the calculator here. It will give you 1.5, like this. Let's make it bigger. 1.5. So this means that 1.7 is 1 and 7 over 10. 1 and 7 over 10, like this. Okay? And this is the fraction or the mixed number that we have from 1.7. Now, to turn this into percentage, you just multiply it by 100. So 1.5 times 100 is going to be 150%. 150%. So focus on the steps and uh, follow the same steps that we do, okay? So 1.7, when you multiply by 100, is going to be 170%. 170%. 70%, like this. Here we have 180%, 180%. Now, let me show you how you turn this into decimal. Basically, 180 over 100, like this, 180 over 100. This is the fraction. So it's an improper fraction. It means you have to turn it into a mixed number. First, let's turn it into a decimal. When you divide it, it will be 1.8, like this. So the decimal will be 1.8. So this means that this one will become, very good, 1.1. 1.1. Now, turning this into a mixed number. So this one, 180, let's do it here. It means 1 and 8 over 10. 1 and 8 over 10. Over 10, like this. And this one means what? Very good. 1 and 1 over 10. So 1 and 1 over 10. This is how you turn between mixed numbers, decimals, and percentages. Focus on the steps and how to turn them to each other, okay? Now, let's move on to the next question. Same idea that we talked about. Same idea as this one. Here. Um, here. Write it as a percentage. Write it as a fraction. You basically, you can use the calculator here. Turn these into percentages. Just multiply them by 100. Turn it into a fraction. Put the percentage over 100. Same idea. For example, write these percentages as decimals and fractions. Let's see. If I want this as a fraction, it's going to be like this. 12.5 over 100. This is a fraction. Okay? So it's going to be 12.5 over 100. Now, in a fraction, this. In a fraction, let's put this here. You can simplify as much as possible. And you have to remove the decimal point, basically. You have to remove the decimal point. So here it's 12.5 over 100. To remove the decimal point, when you write it in the calculator like this, 12.5 divide 100, it will fix it for you. So 12.5 divide 100, it will give you 125 over 1,000. Now, how did this happen? Let me show you. First, I have to move the decimal point. The decimal point must be moved this way here. And because I move it that way, I'm going to add a zero over here. So it's going to be 125 over 1,000. So the fraction will be like this, 125, sorry, 125 over 1,000. And this is the fraction that we got. Now, you can simplify the fraction if it's if you can by dividing. How do you simplify it? You can use a calculator, just divide it by each other. It will give you the answer. Or you can divide this by 125 as the highest common factor between them. Sorry. Yes. So 125, when you divide it by 1,000, it will give you 125 over 1,000. When you simplify, divide this by 125, divide by 125, because both of them can be divided by 125. And the final answer will be 1 over, when you divide 1,000 by 125, you'll get 8. So the final simplified fraction is 1 over 8. So as we said, this is 12.5 over 100. Because I moved the decimal point here, I added a 0. So it's 125 over 1,000. When you simplify it, it's going to be 1 over 8. Same idea for all of them. You can use a calculator to check your answers and make sure that you got the right answer. Now, let's talk about question 8. Write these proportions as fractions in the simplest form. Now, when you write a proportion as a fraction, it means you write the part number out of the total, or write it as it is in this order, 15 over 20, or 15 out of 20. It means it's 15 over 20, like this. And then you simplify it to its simplest form by dividing by the highest common factor. The highest common factor between them is 5, so divide by 5 is divide by 5. 15 divide 5 will be 3, like this. And 20 divide 5 would be 4. And this is the simplest form. Same idea with all of them. Just write them as a fraction and then simplify them as much as possible. For example, this one, 20 over 45. So I'm going to write it here, 20 over 45 as a fraction. And then to simplify it more, I'm going to divide by the highest common factor between them, which is 5. Divide by 5, it's going to be 4. Divide by 5, it's going to be 9. So we end up with 4 over 9 as a simplest fraction of 20 out of 45. And the rest have the same ideas. You just have to write them as a fraction and then simplify them. And this is how you answer a question like this. Now let's move on to the next question. Same idea here. 25 grams portion of breakfast cereal, 2 grams is sugar. So when you write it as a proportion of sugar and breakfast cereal as a fraction, so you write 2 over 25. You write it as a fraction, it's going to be 2 over 25, like this. 2 over 25. This is the portion of sugar and cereal, okay? Let's see. And then, okay, sorry. That's the fraction or the proportion as a fraction. Now, that's for question A. Sorry, question A, yes. And then write your fraction in part A as a decimal. To write this as a decimal, you can use the calculator. It will divide it by itself, turn it into a decimal. Or you can use the method that we talked about before. By writing a decimal, we need to make the denominator have a 10 or 100 or 1,000. So how can we turn the 25 into 100? Very good, by multiplying by 4. So I'm going to multiply this by 4. And because I multiplied the denominator by 4, I have to multiply the numerator by. This means on the denominator we have 100. So we write it like this. The numerator 4 times 2 is 8. and then 4 times 25 is 100. Now, this is the fraction here, the denominator of 100. Now I can write it as a decimal. So 8 over 100 is going to be, very good, 0.08. Now, as I said, you can use a calculator to answer this question. I'm just trying to explain how we got these decimals. And then to turn it into percentage, you just multiply it by 100. So multiply 100 will equal 100. Uh, yes, 8 over 100 times 100 is going to be 8%. And this is how you write a proportion, make it as a fraction, and then turn it into a decimal, and then turn it into a percentage. So all of the questions will have the same ideas. Focus on the steps and focus on the ideas that you have. And that's it for the first lesson. Now let's move on to the second lesson. Okay, let's move on. 8.2. 8.2, writing percentages. Now we're going to talk about writing percentages. First, let's talk about these, converting into decimals. Now, to convert these into decimals, you just have to use the calculator and divide them. So 2 divide 3, you can use it in the calculator, like this. 2 divide 3 will give you 0. This 0.666 as a recurring decimal. Same idea, 3 over 7. 3 divide 7 will give you a recurring decimal of, or you write it 0.42857. Now the question wants what? Write it as a decimal to 3 decimal places. So we're going to round to 3 decimal places. For this one, to round to 3 decimal places, it means I need 3 numbers after the decimal point. So 1, 2, 3. Now I look at the number or the first number outside the box. It's a 6. If it's a 5 or more, I'm going to add 1 here. So this means the final answer will be like this, 0.667. Okay. Here, same idea. I need 3 decimal places. It means I need 3 numbers after the decimal point. So 1, 2, 3. Now I look at the first number outside the decimal point or outside the box, which is 5. 5 is big. It will add 1 here. So this means the final answer will be 0.429. And this is how you write decimals to 3 decimal places. Now, give these proportions as percentages, the same as we did before. Write them as a fraction, so 15 over 20. And then you want to turn it into percentage, you just multiply it by 100. Or, yeah, same idea. Let's do it here as a review for the other one. Sorry. Because proportions are very important, so we have to write them here, okay? So the first one is 15 out of 20. Now I want to write this as a percentage. It means I have to turn the one down into 100. This happens by multiplying the 20 by, very good, 5. So I multiply this by 5. Same idea, because I multiplied the denominator, I have to multiply the numerator, so times 5. Or you can take the fraction, multiply by 100, it will give you the percentage. Now to continue this, 15 times 5 is going to be, very good, 15 times 5 is 75. And then 20 times 5 is 100. This is 100. So after doing this, I got the fraction with 100 in its denominator. It means I can write the percentage, which is 75%. Or I can use the calculator, just take 15 over 20 and multiply by 100 times 100. And it will give me, I'm sorry, so 15 over 20 times 100 is 75%. Now, that's the idea of answering a question like this. So we write these as a proportion and then as a percentage. Okay. Now, let's move on. Yes. Okay. So the next, let's see, the next question here. Let's remove this. So all of these have the same ideas, writing percentages. So the whole idea of writing percentage, you just write a fraction and then multiply it by 100. Okay, multiplied by 100. So for example, 40, write these statements giving the proportion as percentage. So here, 40 out of 30, out of 300. So you write 40 over 300, and then you multiply it by 100, you'll get the percentage. So you make the proportion and then multiply it by 100. Now let's take a look at question 6, for example. Okay. A 1 kilogram bag of mortar contains 250 cement, and then 650 sand, and 100-gram lime. What percentage of the bag is cement, lime, sand, and lime? So the whole idea, first we have to find the total number. Now here they already gave us the total number, which is 1 kilogram. The total number is 1 kilogram. Now we have to make them have the same units. This one is kilogram, this one is in gram. So first let's turn this into grams. So to turn it into gram, we just multiply it by 1,000. So it's going to be 1,000 grams. Okay, that's the first step. We just multiply it by gram, by 1,000, and it's 1,000 gram. Now, to find the percentage, I just find the proportion and then multiply by 100. Now, let's talk about the cement. The cement here, it contains 250 cement. So the cement is 250. I make it as a proportion. So 250, let me copy this, please, first. Give me a second. Yes. So for the cement, 250, 250 over 1,000. Okay. This is the proportion. So the proportion is 250 over 1,000. Now I want to turn it into a percentage. I just multiply it by 100. I just multiply it by 100. Okay. Now when you multiply this by 100 using calculator, it will remove two zeros with two zeros and the last zero with this last zero, and the answer will be 25. So the first one will be 25%. Okay. And this is the percentage of cement. This is the percentage of cement. Okay. Now let's move on with the next question. We're gonna find the rest. Here, lime, the percentage of lime. Now the lime is 100 grams. So I'm gonna put 100 over 1,000. Same idea. So 100 over 1,000. And this is the proportion of lime. Now to turn it into percentage, I just multiply it by 100 times 100. Now using a calculator, it will give you the answer. But me, I'll remove the zeros together, two zeros, 1 0 1 0, and I'll end up with 10. So the final answer is 10%. 10%. I know you're allowed to use calculators, but make sure that you work your brain and use your brain in uh, some of the calculations. You don't have to use it for all calculations. You can use it for some, but make sure that the answer is correct by using the calculator afterwards. Okay. Now, same. Now, sand and lime together. So sand is 650, lime is 100. So when we add them together, 650 plus 100 will equal to 750. Now I'm gonna make it or use it as a proportion. So 750 over 1,000. Now I need to turn it into a percentage. This is the proportion. I just multiply it by 100 times 100. As we said, we can simplify by removing zeros together, two zeros, two zeros, 1 0 1 0, and the answer will be 75%. So this one is 75%. And that's the idea of answering questions like this, okay? So 75%. Now let's move on to the next question. That's the idea of finding the proportion and the percentage. Proportion and percentage, okay? Now let's check question 7 here. Uh, they cost 15. Yes, I'll go to the rest. So buy some party lights. They cost 15 pounds plus 20%. Work out 20% of 15. What's the total cost of the party lights? Okay, here we're talking about percentage, increase of percentage and decrease, okay? So first, as we said, Sufyan buys some party lights. They cost £15 plus 20% VAT. Work out 20% of £15. So basically, the 20% means what? It means 20 over 100. This is the meaning of 20%. Now we take it and multiply it by 15. So we take this and multiply it by 15. So to work out the 15% of 20% of 15, we do it like this. Now we can simplify by dividing. I can divide this by 5 and divide this by 5. So uh, this one by 5 will equal 3. And then we have 100 by 5 will equal 20. So 20 divide 20 will become 1. And then we multiply 1 by 3, so the answer is 3. Basically, you can use the calculator to do that, but it's better to work out these calculations by our own. So this one is £3. So 20% of 15 is £3. The question is, what is the total cost of the party lights? So this means he paid £15 plus the 20%. So £15 plus 3 will equal what? Very good, will equal £18. And that's the total number of pounds he paid for the party lights. Now let's move on. I I divided by the highest common factor. The idea here is dividing by the highest common factor. First thing I did, I used 20% like this, 20 over 100 of 15. It means times 15. Now I want to look for the highest common factor between 15 and 100. Now basically you can multiply this using the calculator. It's okay. You don't have to how to. Yes, you can use this by the calculator. At the end, it will give you £3. And then what's the total cost? You'll add the 3 with the 15. So it's going to be 18. So 15 plus 3 will equal £18. Okay, you can do that without doing the steps I did. Okay. Uh, no, it's okay. Using calculators, you don't need to show your steps. It's okay. But maybe if you make use the calculator to each step is better than using it and giving the final answer only. So make sure that you give some steps so the teacher, when they like correct your papers, they'll understand what kind of steps you used. تمام? Now let's move on. Question 8. Layla gets a 2% pay rise. Pay rise means increase. Her salary was £25,000. What is her new salary? Now, there's a method that we use with percentages. We can use it here. We call it the X method. I'll show you how we use it. Basically, you can find the 2% of this one and then add it to it. It will give you the same answer. First, let's do this. So basically, the original price is always 100%. The original price is always 100%. Now, what happened here, that Layla gets 2% pay rise. 2% pay rise, it means increase. It means the percentage becomes what? 102. Because it's increased by 2%, it became 102. Now, her salary was 25,000. This means that this one is the original one. So the original one should be in front of the 100%. So here we have 25,000. Okay, let me use this. Okay, 25,000. Now I'm looking for what? I'm looking for the price after the increase or the new salary. So basically, I just do what? I just cross multiply. So I'm going to put X here like this. Cross multiply. Multiply the 25,000 by 102 and then divide it by the 100 and you'll get the answer. This is one of the methods that you can use to find the new price. Now let's do it very fast. So 200 or 250,000 5,000 times 102 and then divide by 100. The answer will be 25,500. Yes. So the new price will be 25,500. Okay. Yes. Very good. Yes. Very good. Um, Now, let me show you the other method that you can use instead of this method. This method is called the X method. You can use it with percentages. Now, the other method is what? Is finding the 2% of 25,000. So the 2% is 2 over 100, like this. I just take it and multiply it by 25,000, like this. This method will help me find the increase and then increase it to the salary by myself. So I multiply these by each other using calculators, and the answer will give me 500, like this. Okay, if you want to make sure, 25.23. So it's a 500. Now, the 500 is what? The 500 is the increase. The 500 is the increase. Now I'm going to take it and add it to the salary. So I'm going to say 25,000 plus 500 will equal 55,500. And this is the new salary that she gets. And these are the methods that you can use to solve this problem. Now let's move on to the next question.